you know, seeing other women and the whole thing. I mean, it was a big, big, big disappointment in my life.
For decades, they were the very picture of Hollywood royalty. Shirley Jones was America's sweetheart, with a voice like an angel and a smile that could stop traffic. Jack Cassidy was the devastatingly handsome Broadway star, a man whose charisma was practically a force of nature. Together, they seemed incandescent, a golden couple who made fame look easy. They built a family, shared the stage, and crafted an image so perfect it felt like it had to last forever. But behind the flawless smiles and glamorous premieres was a story that was anything but simple. It was a story of passion so intense it could burn, secrets so deep they could shatter a life, and betrayals that would leave scars for a lifetime. For nearly 20 years, Shirley Jones played her part perfectly, not just on screen, but in her own marriage, protecting the man she loved and the family they built. She stayed silent as whispers turned into rumors, and rumors hardened into painful truths. But time has a way of unraveling even the tightest secrets. Shirley, now in her 90s, has already laid bare the unvarnished truth about her marriage to the brilliant but deeply troubled Jack Cassidy in her startlingly candid memoir. In her own words, we can finally piece together the puzzle of their lives, revealing the heartbreak, the scandals, and the complicated love that defined a Hollywood dynasty and ended in unimaginable tragedy. What really happens when the curtain falls and the public performance of a perfect marriage ends? For Shirley Jones and Jack Cassidy, the reality was a world away from the fairy tale. Did you know that the man Shirley adored was living a secret life, one that involved not just countless women, but men as well? Or that his jealousy over her, skyrocketing success, and even the fame of his own son festered into a destructive poison that would tear their family apart? This isn't the story of Mrs. Partridge or the wholesome girl from Oklahoma. This is the raw, heartbreaking, and until now largely untold story of what it was like to love a man who was both a dream and a nightmare, a man whose appetites were as vast as his talent, and whose tragic end would haunt Shirley for the rest of her life. Our story begins not in sunny Hollywood, but on the legendary stages of Broadway. In the mid-1950s, Shirley Jones was a rising star. Plucked from a small town in Pennsylvania, her incredible voice had caught the ear of Rodgers and Hammerstein, who saw her as the perfect, wholesome heroine. She was Laurie in Oklahoma and Julie in Carousel, roles that cemented her image as America's sweet, unspoiled girl next door. At just 20 years old, her life was already a whirlwind of unexpected success. In 1955, that whirlwind carried her to Europe for a touring production of Oklahoma. During rehearsals, a friend breathlessly asked her, "Shirley, have you met your leading man yet?" When Shirley said no, her friend gushed, "Oh, you are. He's drop-dead gorgeous." Shirley, however, wasn't easily impressed by handsome men, thinking they were often boring. The man in question was Jack Cassidy. At 29, he was a seasoned, swaggering star of the stage, already divorced with a young son named David. When Shirley finally saw him, she had to admit he was handsome. But it was the glimmer of comedy in his eyes, a brightness that suggested a quick wit, that really caught her attention. Later, he walked right over, introduced himself, and said how pleased he was to be working with her. The real magic, though, happened in Paris. On their first night there, Jack called her hotel room. "I'm your leading man," he insisted when she pointed out he was married. "I'll take you to the Eiffel Tower. We'll have some champagne and some escargot." Shirley had never had either. That night, under the glittering Paris sky, Jack was everything his reputation promised: charming, funny, and theatrical. He told jokes and stories, and Shirley, who loved a good sense of humor, was captivated. As he walked her back to her hotel, he did something that would change her life. He leaned in, kissed her on the cheek, and said with unnerving certainty, "I'm going to marry you." A stunned Shirley reminded him again. "But you're married." He simply replied, "I know, but I'm going to marry you." It was a bold, almost arrogant promise, but he kept it. Jack pursued Shirley relentlessly. His divorce was finalized, and just 3 months later, in August of 1956, they were married. To the 22-year-old Shirley, Jack was her knight in shining armor and her Svengali. "He taught me a lot about everything, absolutely everything," she would later write. "I learned about life with Jack. He was bright, well-read, smart. He was her first love and the man who would initiate her into the dizzying and often dangerous world of show business." The early years were a blur of passion and creativity. They recorded albums and co-starred in musicals, their on-stage chemistry, a perfect mirror of their private life. They were the toast of the town, a vibrant couple who seemed to have it all. The late 1950s and early 1960s cemented Shirley and Jack as one of Hollywood's premier couples. Their family grew with the births of 3 sons, Sean, Patrick, and Ryan. Shirley also became a loving stepmother to Jack's son, David Cassidy, who adored her. Publicly, their life was a dream. They were photographed at glamorous events, always smiling, always looking deeply in love. They even bought a sprawling mansion, reportedly the former estate of screen legend Hedy Lamarr, complete with a heart-shaped swimming pool. Professionally, Shirley's star was climbing to unimaginable heights. While Jack was a respected Tony, award-winning actor in New York, Hollywood was a different ocean, and in that ocean, Shirley became a whale. In 1960, she took a huge risk, shedding her wholesome image to play Lulu Baines, a vengeful prostitute in Elmer Gantry. The shocking role earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. That Oscar, however, became a silent poison in their marriage. Jack, a man with a massive ego, had always wanted to be the bigger star. He was proud of his wife, but he was also deeply, corrosively envious. Shirley later confessed that being the primary breadwinner and the more famous of the two was incredibly hard on him. For Jack, his fame was tied directly to his self-worth. This growing insecurity started to show up in ugly ways. The charming mentor began to reveal a darker, more volatile side. The golden couple image was for the cameras. Behind closed doors, the foundation was cracking. Jack's need for attention became insatiable. His personality, once magnetic, was now also seen as narcissistic. Shirley recalled that his image always meant more to him than anything. He drank more heavily, his behavior grew more erratic, and his charming flirtations escalated into full-blown affairs. At first, Shirley tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just the Hollywood lifestyle. She was deeply in love with him, and the thought of breaking up her family was unbearable. So she endured the whispers, the late nights, the unexplained absences. Jack was a master of manipulation. He would cheat, get caught, and then reel her back in with his overwhelming charm, and promises he never meant to keep. Shirley was trapped in a painful cycle. "My awareness of his many infidelities," she later wrote, "didn't tarnish my love for him." This deep, desperate love allowed her to tolerate what many others wouldn't. But the shadows were lengthening, and Jack's secrets were darker than she could yet imagine. In 1970, an opportunity came along that would change everything. Shirley was offered the lead in a sitcom called The Partridge Family, about a widowed mom who forms a band with her kids. Initially, she was hesitant. A weekly TV show felt like a step down for an Oscar-winning movie star. But the shooting schedule was a huge draw. It meant she could be home every night for her sons, a stability she desperately wanted as her marriage to Jack grew more troubled. In a Hollywood twist, producers cast her stepson, David Cassidy, as her son, Keith Partridge, without even knowing they were related. Their natural chemistry gave the show its heart. The series was an instant, massive hit. It didn't just top the ratings, it launched a musical phenomenon. The show's first single, I Think I Love You, with David on lead vocals, shot to number One on the Billboard charts, becoming the best-selling single in the U.S. in 1970. Overnight, David Cassidy became the biggest teen idol in the world. While the world fell in love with the wholesome Partridges, the real Cassidy family was imploding. The show's success, especially David's, was a dagger to Jack Cassidy's ego. He had appeared in the show's pilot, but his character was cut. Now he had to watch as his wife and son achieved a level of global fame that had always escaped him. His simmering jealousy boiled over into open hostility. David Cassidy later described his father's behavior as monstrous. Jack, fueled by alcohol, would belittle David's talent, unable to even say he was proud of him. It was a psychological war waged by a father, consumed by envy. Shirley was caught in the middle, torn between her troubled husband and her protective instincts for her stepson. The fame and fortune from the Partridge family only made things worse. Jack's sense of failure drove him deeper into alcoholism and infidelity. He cheated more than ever, his actions becoming brazen and public. He'd flirt openly with other women in front of Shirley at parties, sometimes disappearing for hours. Committed to her vows and desperate to hold her family together, Shirley suffered in silence, playing the smiling wife for the cameras while her world crumbled. The pain was immense. The happy singing family on the bus was a beautiful fiction. The reality was a family being torn apart by jealousy, addiction, and the crushing weight of fame. The story of Shirley Jones and Jack Cassidy is a powerful reminder that the public image of our favorite stars often conceals a much more complicated reality. If you're finding this look behind the Hollywood curtain fascinating, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us continue to bring you these in-depth stories. Now let's get back to the stunning revelations that Shirley kept hidden for so long. By the early 1970s, the facade of the perfect marriage had become impossible to maintain. The private pain Shirley endured finally reached a breaking point. In her shockingly candid memoir, Shirley finally laid bare the full truth of her life with Jack Cassidy. She confirmed what Hollywood had long whispered: Jack was constantly unfaithful. She recalled a devastating moment when she saw Jack walk into a restaurant with his arm around a young woman, so engrossed he didn't even notice his own wife standing nearby. But the betrayal went even deeper. Shirley finally confirmed the most scandalous rumor about her husband. Jack Cassidy was bisexual. She revealed that he had numerous affairs with men throughout their marriage, a secret she carried for decades. She wrote about what she had learned of his premarital encounter with the famous composer Cole Porter, something she tried to dismiss at the time. The confirmation of Jack's double life was a bombshell. She admitted it was something she accepted, but could never truly understand. He was a man who wanted to taste everything life had to offer, regardless of the consequences, telling her bluntly he wasn't built for monogamy. Desperate to keep her family together, Shirley went to unimaginable lengths to appease him. She even agreed to his request for a threesome with a female dancer. She described the experience in her memoir with a single word: yuck. It was a desperate attempt to understand him that only left her feeling more alone. She confessed that she kept taking him back, even after an 8-month separation, because she couldn't let go. On top of the infidelity was Jack's deteriorating mental health. His behavior became increasingly erratic. Shirley recounted a terrifying incident where she found him sitting naked in a corner, staring at a book. When she tried to get him ready for a show, he looked at her and said calmly, "I know now that I'm Christ." In December 1974, he was hospitalized in a psychiatric facility. It was then that Shirley learned he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Xiao diagnosis explained his wild mood swings, his grandiosity, and his uncontrollable impulses, but it didn't make living with him any easier. The charming, brilliant man she had fallen in love with was being consumed by his demons. Shirley had spent years pretending everything was fine, smiling for the cameras while she was unraveling inside. The weight of the secrets, the affairs with women, the relationships with men, the mental illness, the alcoholism, had become too much. She finally realized that her love couldn't cure him. For her own sanity and for her children, she had to make the most painful decision of her life. In 1974, Shirley Jones filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized in 1975, but for Jack, the end of the marriage didn't end his feelings for Shirley. He was devastated. The man who could never be faithful suddenly couldn't imagine life without her. He called her constantly, pleading with her to reconsider. According to Shirley, Jack wanted to reconcile right up until the very last day of his life. This brings us to the tragic night of December 11, 1976. Jack returned to his penthouse apartment in West Hollywood after a night out. Earlier that day, he had called Shirley again, asking her to come over for drinks to talk about getting back together. She had refused. Alone in his apartment, Jack poured a drink. He was a heavy smoker. At some point in the early morning hours of December 12th, likely exhausted and intoxicated, Jack sat on his couch, lit a cigarette, and fell asleep. The cigarette dropped onto the sofa, which slowly began to smolder. By the time firefighters arrived, the penthouse was an inferno. The next morning, investigators discovered a body in the charred ruins, burned so badly it was unrecognizable. After several agonizing hours, the coroner made a positive identification. Using dental records, it was 49-year-old Jack Cassidy. He had died in a fire of his own making, a reckless and tragic end to a brilliant and reckless life. The news was a devastating blow to Shirley and her family. Despite all the pain, she had never stopped loving him. Years later, she made a heartbreaking confession. "Jack wanted to come back to me right up to the day he died," she said. "And as I realized later, I wanted him. That's the terrible part." She admitted that on the night he died, after she had turned him down, she changed her mind. She decided she did want to see him, to talk about a reunion, but by then it was too late. He died never knowing that she wanted him back. This terrible what if would haunt her. She even admitted that had Jack lived, she wasn't sure if she would have married her second husband, comedian Marty Ingalls. "Much as I love Marty," she confessed, "I'm not sure if Jack were alive, I'd be married to Marty." It was a testament to the profound, indelible mark Jack Cassidy had left on her soul. He was the great love of her life, and even in death, his hold on her was undeniable. After Jack's death, Shirley Jones had to figure out how to live in a world without the man who had defined her entire adult life. She guided her children through their grief and eventually found a different kind of love with Marty Ingalls. Theirs was a union many found odd, but it was built on laughter and companionship, lasting for nearly 4 decades until his death in 2015. Marty gave her a stability that Jack never could, but the ghost of Jack Cassidy never truly left her. And now, finally telling her story, Shirley didn't paint him as a villain. She painted a portrait of a complex, brilliant, and deeply flawed man she adored, even as he repeatedly broke her heart. Her revelations were not an act of revenge, but an act of truth. It was the final, unburdening confession of a woman who had carried the weight of secrets for a lifetime. So how could she love a man so deeply while enduring such devastation? That's the haunting question at the heart of their story. The answer lies in the fierce, all-consuming nature of first love. Shirley's story is a powerful look at the vast canyon between a public fairy tale and a private reality. It reveals the immense strength it took to love Jack Cassidy, the courage it took to leave him, and the grace it took to protect his legacy, even while finally telling the truth. Shirley Jones chose not to be remembered just as the smiling Mrs. Partridge, but as a woman who lived, loved, and survived a passion that was as brilliant as it was destructive. What do you think of Shirley Jones's decision to finally reveal the truth after so many years? Does it change how you see her or Jack Cassidy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more stories that uncover the hidden lives of Hollywood's greatest stars, make sure you subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.